Good morning and welcome to another episode of Back to the Past. I think this is going to be episode number 30 or 31 depending on where I put it in the lineup, but welcome. The past week has been just simply gorgeous with temperatures up into the 60s, but today's a little different. A cold front came through last night. The temperature right now is 21 degrees. It was a little breezy earlier, bringing the chill factor down to about 10. But the sun is starting to poke through the clouds, so that's going to help a lot. You can maybe see that I've finished all of the footings now. The footings are all in place. Some of them are still covered from yesterday, and I don't think I'll uncover them today because the high today is only supposed to get up to barely the freezing mark. I am ready to get started on the walls, and with these walls I'm hoping to do a little better job explaining what I'm doing than what I did with the footings, because the walls are a little more critical part of the construction, both in quality and layout and accuracy. So I'll be moving the camera around quite a bit today just to hopefully give you a better view. I may even include some drawings or diagrams of what I'm doing for measurements. That may even include some of what I did with the footings, because I may not have done a real good job of explaining to you some of the measurements and dimensions that I used in putting in the footings, the placement of the wall on the footing, the placement of the steel stakes that I drove, and that sort of stuff. So I hope to get into that a little bit. We are going to start out by determining just exactly how much we're going to be able to pour at a time. And I pretty much base everything that I'm doing on buying 1 pallet of concrete mix, which is roughly a cubic yard. So a pallet of the 60-pound bags is 54 bags. I actually have 7 bags left over from what I did yesterday in pouring this footing, so I've got a total of 63 bags to work with. So we are going to do some calculations using some good old-fashioned high school algebra and using Sackcrete's dimensions and what do you need chart. And what we are going to determine is that well, I've actually done the calculations, and this first wall pour is going to be about 10 feet in length. I'll be just under 4 feet in height. And that should take roughly, from what I've calculated, about 60 sacks of the concrete mix, which I think should be enough. I'm hoping I've got enough with 63, but there's always a possibility of a little waste or dumping a wheelbarrow full and losing a couple bags worth or something. But I really want to make this first pour about 10 feet long, and then every pour after that will probably be 9 or 10 feet. I will do a number of pours with a 4-foot high wall because I'm going to need them when I get to backfilling here. This actually appears that it's more than that, but by the time I get a swale sloped into it, 4 feet should work just fine. And what I'm going to do is start back there. The first 13 feet will be a 2-foot high wall. Then we'll change to a 4-foot high wall and run that 4-foot high wall all the way around the corner for probably about 8 or 10 feet, and then go for a 2-foot high wall the rest of the way. And then everything else will be in just a little 8-inch high by 8-inch wide stem wall to take care of the framing for the building. Let's get started. So for a 10-foot long wall by 4 foot high, we'll use 4-foot by 8-foot sheets of plywood, which is pretty commonly available. So what that's going to mean is I'll have a full 8-foot sheet plus another 2 feet. So my first task will be then to cut a couple of 2-foot long pieces of plywood. So To make things easy, I've already set up a straight edge so I get a nice straight line cut that is 25.5 inches from the end. And what that 25.5 inches is the 24 inches that I need for the forms, plus 1.5 inches from the blade to the guide. So let's make these first couple of cuts. One down. That's it for the 2-footers. Today, if you don't see quite as much of Gabby as you're normally used to seeing, it's because she's sort of in the doghouse today. Yesterday she was kind of slow in responding my call back on a couple of occasions, so I'm keeping a little closer eye on her today. She may spend some time sitting in the on the seat of the rhino or something. If I were just going to use these forms one time, I probably wouldn't worry about oiling them, but since I'm going to get at least 6 and probably closer to 8 uses out of them, I want to oil them so that they are easier to strip and clean afterwards and be more reusable. Also, this first pour, I'm probably going to leave the forms there until I return from Colorado in about a week or so. I've only got a day or two left here to get this wall pour made. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started oiling. I will set them aside to drain any excess off and to soak up whatever they can of the diesel fuel. That's it for the form oil. While the oil is soaking up, we'll go ahead and move around a little bit and start doing the layout on the footing for where this first form pour is going to go. Then we'll come back and drill tie holes in all the forms, and we'll talk a little bit about form pressure and tie placement. I've seen a lot of footings put in that are off by several inches and always manage to make things work. I am really pleased that after I checked the layout and snapped lines for the wall, that the footings are nearly perfect. In elevation, they're off by as much as a quarter. I think there was one spot I saw was about 3/8 of an inch low. But so far as elevation, or for where they should be, they're actually sitting just about perfect. You can see my snap line here, and it's about 4 inches from the outside edge. What we'll be doing is to put down a 2x4 here along the back side of the wall. Even though the temperature is cold, I may end up taking off this long sleeve shirt. That sunshine's feeling really nice. So I've snapped a new line that is 3/4 of an inch outside of the wall, the line that is the actual wall line. I'll be drilling holes and placing 1/4 inch Tapcons in them just to hold it in place, and probably 4, maybe 5 to hold that in place. You need them every 2 to 3 feet. Here we go. Let me fire up the generator and make some noise. That's it, our bottom plate is set. Let's talk a little bit now about form ties and form pressure. We know that we're going to use about 60 bags to do 10 lineal feet, 4 feet high. So a total of 12 bags every 2 feet. 12 60-pound bags weigh 720 pounds. Step around here. So I have laid out tie holes at a 2-foot spacing horizontally and 16-inch spacing vertically. When these walls are stood and we're pouring concrete, the wall will fill with a full liquid head. Now, plumbers are concerned about head pressure, divers are concerned about head pressure, and I'm concerned about head pressure. I talk a little bit about head pressure in episode 14, I think it was, about what the weight of water does. Well, the weight of concrete is more than double what the weight of water is, so it can be quite a concern. In a 4-foot high wall, probably not. In an 8-foot high wall, even using this same system, no, probably not. You get over 10 or 12 feet, you start to stress the materials. You can break ties, you can break or bend the 2x4 whalers that are keeping the wall straight, or you can stress the plywood and get some dips between supports. So what I'm going to do next is to drill a 5/8 inch hole, a total of 12 in one sheet of plywood, and then I'll also have to do the 2-foot sheets. But this tie then will fit through that hole in the plywood. This will be easier to see when I'm actually using it. Fit through the hole in the plywood. That'll leave room here for what's called a John clamp, which is essentially a cam operated clamp that will clamp in a 2x4 laying over the top of these. The 2x4 then helps to keep the walls straight. The button on the end will take care of the force. The button on the end and the tie itself will take care of the force of the concrete. 12 bags in 2 feet means that we've got 720 pounds of pressure, which actually converts from head pressure into an outward pressure on the bottom of the forms. Now, whether you're mixing up concrete just like soup or whether you're using a concrete vibrator to consolidate it, you're getting pretty much the full head pressure from the concrete pushing out on the forms. And what that does is that the spacing of these ties gives us about 600 pounds each. On the lower ties gives us, I think it was 360 on the center row of ties and about 120 on the top row of ties. So we got a fair amount of pressure on it, but like I'd said before, on a 4-foot high wall, not really a big concern. So I'll get started drilling here. It isn't warm enough that I'm going to be able to strip down to a t-shirt today, but I was at least able to get rid of one layer and make it a lot more comfortable for me. Hopefully now you'll be able to make a little more sense of what I was trying to explain about the placement of the ties and such. So here we go. Got John clamps in one hand, ties in the other. And we do those just tight enough to get them started. That cam lock we will tighten down against the 2x4 when it's time to put that in. And the 2x4 we'll call a whaler. And it's not like a Boston whaler or a fisherman, it's a whaler, W-A-L-E-R. I'd love to put in a whaler right now, but I forgot him back at the cabin. So give me a few minutes, I'll be right back. Here I am with the whaler. Now, something that is absolutely not needed is for these to be treated. But something I noticed during the COVID scare a little over a year ago when I was building a shed is when I did the 2x10s for my floor support, treated lumber was actually cheaper than whitewood lumber. And now it's not a whole lot different. The lumber prices have really shot up again here in early February. 12-foot 2x4 in whitewood was about $17, whereas a 12-foot 2x4 in treated lumber is about 18 bucks. And these I will have a lot better reuse for, using them then for sill plates to where I'll start my wooden walls from. So that's what I did. So we take and tilt this in, often take some beating. And I have over 2 feet hanging off of the backside there. So now we can tighten up the John clamps and let those cams lock in place. Now, as you can see, it's way out of plumb. I will start to fix that here. Uh-oh, I just lost my suspender. I think that in the construction industry, one of the coolest things that was ever built for doing concrete work is the turnbuckle. And that turnbuckle that you're seeing on the end will help me to be able to make minor adjustments when I'm trying to plumb up this wall. Not only right now, but if the forms get bumped around a little bit, it's just a matter of making a couple simple turns instead of pulling nails or screws. During and after the pour, things almost always move just a little bit. Makes it for really easy adjustment later. So I'll drive a stake. And we'll get things somewhere in the ballpark of being plumb. Now for the other 3 whalers, and then we'll come around and take a look at this side. And this is sometimes easier with 2 people. What happens if you're a little bit on the unlucky side is by the time you get to the other side of the wall, the tie will have fallen out. And that honestly just about finishes up this side of the wall. Something that I failed to mention is that probably 80% of your work is done from one side of the wall. This is the easy part. When you get to the other side, you have rebar to put in, and you've got to make up the forms from the other end, which means lining up these ties just right. Usually hanging over the edge with a claw hammer and pulling or pushing or tapping around or whatever to get them started. That side is fairly difficult to work from, so you want to do your least accessible side first. That's particularly important if you are building something that is box shaped, because you can walk in with your plywood, with your whalers, with all your form accessories, and then stand your forms. If you do your outside form first on a box, everything you need for the inside has to go over the top, and that adds a lot of work. I'm going to move the camera around, and I'll probably be doing a lot of time lapsing here for a little while. See you then.